Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Tierraney for those of you who are new here, and I thank you so much for tuning into my channel. Today I wanted to share with you some different things that I have learned from having substitutes in my classroom. I have had my fair share of substitutes in my classroom because maybe I've had to take some personal business, or I've had professional development opportunities and trainings that I've had to be a part of, so I couldn't be in my classroom with my students. So I've definitely had my fair share of substitutes throughout the time that I've been teaching, and I just wanted to share with you some things that I've learned from trial and error of having substitutes in my classroom. So one thing that I have learned is that when you're working with substitutes, their experience level varies. You have some substitutes who have taught full-time in their own classroom for years, and they're just now transitioning into a position where they only sub for teachers in the district. Or you may have substitutes who have never taught before. So definitely keep that in mind when you're thinking of work to assign to your class while you are gone, because their experience level varies. Another thing that I would say is that when you're working with substitutes or you have a sub come into your classroom, you definitely want to make sure that you have put away any materials that you do not want for your class or your substitutes to be using. So for example, I have been gone sometimes before, and I have had copies made that I've left out that were not supposed to be used while the substitute was working with my students and while I was gone, but the sub anyway has chosen to take those materials and use them in class, or they just allow students, because they don't know, they allow students to use materials that the students are not supposed to be using. So to avoid any of this happening, I encourage you to put away and lock up any materials that you do not want a substitute to be using in your classroom. In addition to this, I find that a lot of the times substitutes do use materials that you don't want them to use with your class because you haven't left them enough work to use with your students. So I encourage you to leave the materials that they're supposed to be using with your class, but in addition to that, have some extra worksheets or things like that that you can write on your substitute plans that allow for your substitute to use in case they have already exhausted the materials that you have given them to use. So always leave some backup and some extra material that they can use with your class. In addition to that, do not make your substitute plans super complicated. Keep them simple. For example, I like to leave with my substitute my daily classroom schedule, so it's just easy for them to read and to use and to follow throughout the day. You include certain things like when your students go to ancillary, when they go to lunch, when you switch classes, if you do with a partner teacher, you want to let them know where ancillary is going to be. Are they supposed to take the walkers at the end of the day, the car riders, the bus riders? Those are the types of things that you want to be leaving with your substitute, in addition to anything else that you feel is very necessary. I would also encourage you to assign for your substitute to use material that is based on content that you have already taught to your class. I wouldn't suggest that you are giving your substitute new content and new information to introduce to your class, because again, like I said, substitutes level of experience varies. So I recommend that you definitely give the substitute information that's sort of a review, or maybe you taught it the day before you were going to be absent, so you just want them to get some extra practice in, and you have an anchor chart that's already prepared that they can refer to. Then I definitely encourage you to use that material over trying to give your sub new content to introduce to your class. In addition, something that I have used this year when I've been absent from my class is I have assigned a substitute assistant. So I have chosen one of my top students, the students who are super responsible, who are usually always on task and focused and gives their best effort. I assigned that student as the substitute assistant. And this student is someone who also is always at school and is never really absent, so that I can guarantee that they're going to be there the day that the substitute is in my classroom. The substitute assistant can be that trusted student that the substitute can ask, hey, where is this science lab classroom? Can you show us? Can you lead the class please to where the science lab is? And you know that that student is always going to do what's right and is going to help the substitute and give them the truth and the information that they really need. In other words, the substitute assistant is just that go-to student who the sub can go to in case they have any questions or concerns. And of course, the substitute can always go to a teacher that is nearby, but at the same token, that teacher is focused on her classroom or his classroom and trying to deliver instruction, so therefore it's easier for the substitute to just go to that substitute assistant student instead of going into another classroom. So I definitely hope that you found these tips helpful. And I definitely want to encourage you to please stop by my website, MissTierraney.com. Sign up for my newsletter that I send exclusive information to all of those who are signed up to my newsletter on my website. You can also access my newsletter by clicking in the description box below and clicking the link there and signing up. All you need to do is put in your email and your first name. And I definitely, again, want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. I thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next video.